Welcome to Art with Mrs. Cap, where we are going on a journey through the world of art and the many histories and cultures that influence it. Whether you're a kid or a kid at heart, wanting to learn more about the art world, this is the podcast for you. So join us as we journey through art with Mrs. Cap. Welcome to Art with Mrs. Cap. In this episode, we're going to be looking at ancient Egypt. Yes, the time of pharaohs and pyramids and all that fun stuff. But we're specifically going to be looking at the New Kingdom period of ancient Egypt. So let's go ahead and dive into today's work of art that we're going to be looking at. So we're looking at the seated statue of Hatshepsut. This is from about 1479 to 1458 BC. That's when it's dated. So the seated statue of Hatshepsut is from the New Kingdom, Dynasty 18, and it's from the reign of Hatshepsut and Thutmose III. So it's from Upper Egypt, Thebes. It was discovered in excavations between like 1926 and 28. There were some excavations that happened in 1843 and 45. So somewhere in that range, it was discovered. It is limestone and it has paint on it. We do have some fragments of paint that remain. So that tells us a little bit about how it was decorated and what it looked like originally, which is really cool that we have that. Thankfully, Egypt is a dry and arid environment, and that helps us with preserving some of these things that don't always get preserved in other locations of the world. All right, so Hatshepsut is considered to be the most successful of several female rulers of ancient Egypt. She declared herself king sometime between the years 2 and 7 in the reign of her stepson and nephew, Thutmose III. So she adopted the full title of pharaoh, including the throne name Matkar, which is the name most frequently found on her monuments. So her throne name and her personal name, Hatshepsut, are both written inside oval cartouches, making them easy to recognize. So she had a throne name and then she had her personal name. Okay, so on the throne, she acted as a male, she dressed as a male ruler, but she was a female. Okay, and we see that in this work of art. We'll get into that a little bit more. So this is a life-size statue that shows Hatshepsut wearing the Nemes headcloth and the Shindite kilt, both important components of the ceremonial attire of the Egyptian king, which of course was traditionally a man's role. In spite of the masculine dress, this statue is distinctly feminine. There are definitely feminine touches with her face and so forth, and it shows her true gender identity. So although she dressed as a man, she presented herself as a man to legitimize her claim to the throne and her rule. She was indeed a female and a female ruler. So unlike most representations of Hatshepsut as ruler, for example, there are other ones that show her kneeling and standing and so forth. The kingly titles on the sides of this work of art, on the sides of the throne, are feminized to read the perfect goddess, the lady of two lands, and bodily daughter of Re. So there are traces of blue pigment that are visible in some of the hieroglyphs on the front of the statue and small fragments on the back of the head. So these show that the pleats of the Nemes headcloth were originally painted with alternating blue and yellow pigments, which is fitting. If you've seen, King Tut's mask that's gold and blue. That's a very fitting color combination for the Nimi's headcloth, or what we would call a crown. So the statues that depict Hatshepsut in a more feminine form, like this one, are in a seated pose with hands that lay flat on the knees. This suggests that they were probably intended to receive offerings and would probably have been placed in less public areas of the temple, such as chapels, on the upper terrace, etc. So two of these statues depict her as unequivocally a woman. And then others, it's kind of, disguised and masked and so forth. In keeping with this, why would they be offering her, offerings and have her in a temple? Understanding Egyptian ideology and stuff, the pharaoh was a god. And a lot of that was presented with the way they dressed. So it was important that the pharaoh was always dressed the same, because to the people, to the commoners, Pharaoh was a god, and he wasn't different people. It was the same Pharaoh. And so they had this ideology that, Pharaoh never died, even though we have all of these tombs and stuff, to the pharaohs. But to keep with this, Hatshepsut actually wore a fake beard, like the pharaoh, little goatee looking thing. She had like this strap-on beard to further, show her identifying as this ruler and, saying like, I am Pharaoh. Even though she was a female, she dressed and embraced that role and all that came with it to present herself as a legitimate ruler in spite of who she was born as. So it's definitely very progressive and ahead of the time for this time. So there's a lot that can be said about Hatshepsut, but we do not have time to get into all of that in today's episode. But if you want to visit this work of art and many other amazing Egyptian works, it is located in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, also known as the Met, in New York City. Many years ago, I had the privilege of going to see this. It's a beautiful work of art, and it was really cool because I was in college at the time. I was studying art history. I was actually in a course on ancient Egypt, and we had just studied this particular statue, and then I saw it in person, and of course I was just totally geeking out over that and thrilled to be seeing it in person. But if you wanted to see it today, go check it out at the Met in their Egyptian collection. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this brief discussion on one of the most amazing female rulers in all of ancient Egypt's history. Of course, we know about, Cleopatra and others, but Hatshepsut really stands out in the crowd and is worth studying and looking at. And this was just a brief little introduction to her as a person and as a ruler. I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Be sure to subscribe and check out more episodes as we travel through the world of art and art history to have a better understanding of our own ties to the culture and history of humanity.